Hello, Serie A fans, and welcome to another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. I am Daniele Proc, and today I am especially excited to unpack what happened over the last week of Serie A football because there have been incredible results, upsets, as well as controversies. But to do that, I'm going to need the usual help from Total Football Analyst Steve Coleman. Hello, Steve.
Yeah, morning, Danny. How you going?
I'm doing pretty good. And who better than professional center back Alex Comzia can walk us through the struggle that defenders go through nowadays, that VAR is so strict about handballs. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Alex.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible, but happy to be back.
And you guys know that Chris Mumford is a busy man. He hosts the EPL podcast, among a million other things that he does for Total Football Analysis. So Chris texted me over the weekend. He was thinking about stepping off of this this Serie A pod this week because he said he was overwhelmed with work. But as soon as the Napoli-Milan game ended, and precisely as soon as Donnarumma walked off the pitch with that questionable performance, Chris texted me that he wanted to be back. He really wanted to bring up some points during this pod. So Chris, bring it on. My guard is up. I'm ready to take the hit.
I'm ready to show the love and the anger when needed.
So we talked about how this week was going to shape things up in terms of title race, Europe battle, and the relegation. So let's go in order. We'll work our way down from the top. I think there is a little bit of irony in the fact that Juventus was able to widen the gap between themselves and the second place Lazio, despite collecting 1 point in 2 games. So last Tuesday, they play against the AC Milan. They lost 4-2, and all 6 goals came in the second half. Juventus was up 2-0. So I was going to ask you, Alex, a team like Juventus, they've been winning the Scudetto for 8 straight seasons. How does it happen that they just turn off in one half and concede 4 goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. In theory, it could happen to anyone, but especially at Juventus, where the standard is so high, it should never happen, especially against a team like Milan, where it's a fierce rival and there's reputation on the line, right? Very much a tale of two halves. I think they thought they had this game in the bag. They got a little bit arrogant. Maybe the Zlatan effect is still around, but they fell apart in the second half. And when your leader, and your leader, I mean Bonucci in the back, is performing so poorly, in my opinion, that's contagious, just as any positive performance is contagious. And when you're shaky at the back and the momentum switches, all of a sudden it's 2-1. All of a sudden, oh, wow. Oh, wait, we can't give up another goal. We gave another goal. Oh, we're vulnerable. It's going to happen again. This doesn't happen to us. We're Juve. This shouldn't happen. That gets into the mindset of the defenders and the midfielders, not so much the forwards, in my opinion, and the goalkeeper especially. So the momentum flipped. First goal opened the floodgates. And in my opinion, they became arrogant. Even look at that last goal. Sandro plays a terrible ball across his back line. It's just, you want to play out of the back, of course, but that is just reckless and careless, in my opinion, not taking care of the ball. No, clearly there's not enough pressure on the line there to make a good informed decision of maybe you should play the ball up the line and maybe in behind for a guy like Cristiano. But they're just lucky, in my opinion, that Lazio has just really dropped the ball here, or else, they'd be panicking.
True. And you mentioned the Ibrahimovic effect. So after the game, Ibrahimovic came out with a quote. He said, "If I had been here since day one, we would have won the Scudetto." So I wish there was a metric that we could use to verify that. What we know right now is that with Ibrahimovic on the field, Milan averages 1.9 points per game, and without him, 1.4 points per game. So there is definitely a Zlatan effect here. Do you guys have any other takes about the game, how that unfolded?
No, I think Alex hit the nail on the head. I think if you look at the 4th goal that they conceded, that sums up their game. To be fair, I thought they were poor with the ball. I thought they were poor without the ball, notwithstanding Rabiot's great finish for the first goal. the lack of discipline and the lack of care and attention that they had with the ball, I think was a real issue in this game, and it didn't get any better, to be fair, in the Atalanta game either.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the problems carried over in the Juventus-Atalanta game that was played this Saturday, finished 2-2, and Atalanta was had the lead twice, and Juventus was able to come back thanks to penalty kicks. But let's first talk about the first goal. So Papu Gomez was able to slip Duvan Zapata through with a very nice ball. And Steve, you asked Alex the previous spot, how do you mark Duvan Zapata, right? A striker of such physical strength. And I'm going to make sure that we'll message Rodrigo Bentancur with a link to that pod, because really Zapata made a fool of him in the first goal. Alex, as a defender, what exactly did Bentancur do wrong right there?
You could give Betancourt definitely the pod, but you should tag De Ligt too, because in my opinion, De Ligt actually oversteps here. So let's talk about De Ligt first, then we'll talk about Betancourt. De Ligt oversteps here. He goes a little bit too far high and a little bit too far to the left.
You mean on Gomez, right?
On Gomez.
Okay.
And he gets spun. He gets spun, and then there's a clear passing lane. Okay, that's the first mistake. The next mistake is obviously from Betancourt. He doesn't see that Zapata's making a hard run. He's ball watching, and all he had to really do was just step up, cut off the lane, and then he would actually intercept. If he moved up and a little bit to the left, he would actually intercept that ball and block Zapata. So if Zapata would have to run in behind, he'd probably be offside. That wouldn't be the case, but I mean, like Steve said, he asked me last week or a couple weeks ago, it's so hard to fight off Zapata once he gets running, because he just absolutely bullied Betancourt. It was way too late. He almost looked and he was like, oh, it's over. And then he just came in and he scored a beautiful goal. So 2 mistakes there, in my opinion.
I thought they were so dangerous, Atalanta. Every opportunity, you felt like they were going to get something. I think moving Gomez closer to Zapata after the resumption, he played him a little bit deeper earlier on in the year, but moving him closer to him, they're just smashing everyone that comes in their way right now, and they should win this game comfortably without the 2 pens, in my opinion.
Yeah, Atalanta absolutely controlled the game. The role of Papu Gomez is interesting because he really has a lot of freedom. He can do whatever he wants on the field. Sometimes we see him dropping almost as a holding midfielder, receiving the ball, and they push one of either the right-sided or left-sided midfielder up to stay close with the striker and Ilicic. But he's been making a difference for Atalanta. I think he just reached something like 300 Serie A appearances, Papu Gomez. So key player for sure. Let's get to the most controversial topic of the weekend. So Serie A is seeing a spike in terms of penalty kicks awarded, and this game was a perfect example of that. 2 handballs against Atalanta in the penalty area, and 2 PKs that were later converted by Cristiano Ronaldo. Is there something the defenders can do to avoid handballs, or are they really helpless in that case? Alex, I'm going to go to you first.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll wait. I'm a VAR grump.
Let's wait for the professional player to do the thing.
Game, put it this way, the game has changed, and it's actually a disadvantage for the defenders, because your arms are used to keep you balanced. Your arms are connected to how you move your feet. So the moment you have to put your arms behind your back and run that way, that's an automatic advantage for the attackers when they're dribbling 1v1 or whether there's a ball bouncing. So many of these handballs are unintentional, and that's how it used to be. Unintentional, his arm is down, but now if it hits it, automatic PK. So the game has definitely changed. It's a little soft in my opinion. It's for advantage for the attackers. VAR is definitely, you'll get into it, but definitely, the headliner in so many of these matches. But if you want to, if that's the rule, if you want to call it that way, then these are all PKs. I don't think it's debatable. If that's the rule, and that's the set rule, it's pretty clear in my opinion. It just kind of sucks as a defender. You have to train your defense to, maybe that should be a training session now, to train with your hands behind your back and be able to move left and right and be able to clear balls. And you look at the Higuain one at the last moment on Muriel, that's just so unfortunate. He's just running. You don't run with your hands behind your back. You run like this with both hands moving forward. So yeah, debatable for sure.
The term is natural silhouette, isn't it? I believe is the correct term in the rule book these days. So the first one's interesting because he starts with his hands behind his back to defend the cross, and then as he turns his body, his arms naturally move to the movement of his body. Is he within the line of his body? I think is a tough one, but these days, like Alex said, it's a penalty. The rule is the rule fit for purpose? Is VAR fit for purpose? We could probably have a whole pod on that, to be fair. And then the second one is a classic example of why strikers shouldn't be allowed anywhere near the penalty area defensively. He's just, I don't care if he's running or what he's doing. Why his arm is out at that angle at that time of the game in that moment is madness. And that one's definitely a penalty. You can't argue the dirt with that one. But yeah, the first one is obviously a penalty, but the frustration is palpable for Atalanta for sure, definitely.
Yeah, I want to bring up 2 points here. The first penalty kick, which was caused by the handball by Martin Deron. So Deron went to the ref and he pointed at his elbow as if to say, "Listen, I know it hit my arm, but it was like along my body. What am I supposed to do? Cut it off?" I thought that was very illustrative of the problem with the controversy that arise around the handballs. And then, Alex, about the training session, I do think that now strikers are training to hit the defender's arms, or at least, they spend, 10, 15 minutes at the end of the session. It's a skill. As well as defenders, they have to train with their arms behind their back. But again, what if the strikers then engage on a 1v1 and you are off balance because you're not keeping your arms, in a position ready to sprint? So
let's paint a little picture here. There's a wing before we go to Chris. There's a winger, okay? He's dribbling. He's about to cross it. He realizes there's no one in the box, but the defender he's up against is actually in the box. Any smart winger, and if they train this, like you said, can realize maybe they're down a goal. Who knows the scenario? And if they're able, they have the technique to actually hit it against these guys' hands. That changes the game completely. That's a talent.
It is. Yeah. I think it's a new skill.
Yeah, I would say that VAR is VAR. It's video. So if we're going to stay with this rule, then we're probably going to have to require defenders to amputate just below their shoulder to make sure they don't get handballs, because it's ridiculous, especially with the modern lateral speed of athletes today versus back in the old days when I played. We were all pretty clunky. And so if you hit it with the hand, it's probably because you deliberately meant to hit it with your hand. So my vote, and I'd like to get y'all's take on this, because this is clearly ridiculous. I thought all the beautiful, beautiful play that Atalanta did was completely negated by 12 people in black and white, the 11 Juve players and the center official, right? So my take is if it is an inadvertent handball in the box, it is a indirect free kick, right? Let's put some entertainment and some creativity into it. And if it's because of VAR, and if it looks like someone's moving their hand to tap a ball or hit it, then you got to say, sorry, that goes to the PK. Because you guys know last time I talked about this international conspiracy against goalkeepers to have more PKs. And I want to bring that global consortium down. But what's y'all's take on the idea of indirect free kick on inadvertent handballs in the box?
Chris, I think that only adds gray area to the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think it can help because it's going to be hard to determine whether a shot was going to go in. Okay, then it's a PK, or, it's actually a cross, then it's an indirect free kick. I think the VAR has tried to eliminate that gray area. And like Alex just said, that's a new rule. We either stick to it or we're going to just discuss it forever.
Yeah,
Right, but
they got to decide whether the rules fit for purpose and whether it fits in with the VAR decision. There's a goal disallowed in the Udinese game, I think, from a set piece that was disallowed for a handball, and I can't remember who it was, but he jumped with the rebound and with his arms by his side, and it glanced off his elbow into the goal, and as soon as it went in, he knew that it wasn't a goal, but it's never it's literally he's getting in the way of a deflection. But yeah, it was ruled out for handball. So whether the rule is fit for purpose or whether it isn't needs to be discussed first. Whether VAR continues in the game is very much up for debate as well. And I do think the Italians have got it as close to being correct as it can be. I think in the Premier League it's got some real issues. But yeah, the grey area, you don't want to add more grey area. You need it to be more black and white, like Danny says there.
Well, see, I disagree with y'all because, again, if an arm comes up like this when you're turning, right, and you're literally to propel your torso, your arm and your elbow goes up and it hits it and then it falls off a little bit to the side. To me, that's not the intent of the rule. The intent of the rule is for someone to gain advantage through their hands in the box to keep a goal from or a pass from moving forward. And I don't think it's a technology problem. Video don't lie. It is what it is, right? So it's really what is the rule a justifiable and enforceable rule or not?
Yeah, we'll see what the developments are in terms of ruling handball in the box. But I would like to talk about another skill, which is converting penalty kicks, because we're gonna have to give credit to Cristiano Ronaldo. 11 from 11 from the spots. He has an average conversion rate this season of 100%, whereas we know that in football, converting a PK is the percentage is around 75%, I believe. Is there anybody else in the world that you guys would choose to take a PK besides Cristiano?
Right now, Ramos.
Yeah,
Definitely. But I'd still pick Cristiano over Ramos any day.
I might consider choosing somebody else because Ronaldo's due for some misses if it really is 75%.
Okay, that's a good perspective. And Chris,
Yeah.
you know what? I was thinking that this number, the conversion rate, I think the number is gonna go high even more given the harsh restrictions that they're now imposing on keepers. Keep one foot on the line. What do you think about that?
I hate the rule, obviously. I mean, as someone that was very liberal about stepping off the goal line when I was doing PKs, if your baseline's, you're going to lose 75% of the time, giving a keeper one step forward. And I know that we can say, well, that's going to create more gray area because people are going to take two steps. But I think starting on the goal line with a little bit of wink, but the problem is technology doesn't allow for the wink anymore, right? Mm-hmm. The back in the old days, refs could let that be. So that's one of those sort of things where we talked a little bit earlier about the penalty kick is VAR is allowing for the full on enforcement. So we have to kind of go back and see is the rule legit or not.
As I'm listening to this, I'm just thinking like VAR is creating, a big advantage for more goals, aren't they? With the PK on the line goalkeeper rule and the handball rule. I just feel like it's maybe more entertaining for the fans, more goals. Is that what you guys think is set out, or is just like part of it?
Don't get me started on it.
I won't then.
It's a discussion for another pod, I guess. But no, yeah, I think that in that sense, Alex, I agree in terms of penalty kicks. But at the same time, you have things like offsides, by the millimeter. There have been a lot that have been ruled out. I don't have the numbers right now. I haven't checked them, but I'm curious to see what's the percentage of disallowed goals after VAR checks. So Juventus currently sit first in the league, 8 points ahead of Lazio with 6 games to go. But let's move on to another topic, which is the Europa League battle. And this past weekend, actually on Sunday, Napoli hosted AC Milan. The game finished 2-2, and Steve is gonna help us see what happened in that game.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. I actually thought it was a good game with lots of ebbs and flows and lots of little subtle changes throughout it. To try and counter the Napoli threat. I thought Pioli started one way, changed to another way to try and combat that, and I thought it created a real nice game to watch. So Milan obviously started 4-2-3-1. I think they have to continue to do that to accommodate Ibrahimovic at the top. I think if he goes another way with it, it gives him a little bit of a disadvantage in certain areas, which we'll come to a little bit later on. Napoli more of a 4-1-4-1, obviously 4-3-3 with the ball, but more 4-1-4-1 without the ball. And I think the big takeaway is Gattuso continuing to juggle his squad around guys coming in, guys being rotated out for rest. It really shows that he's got a real togetherness with his squad, where they don't tend to lose a hell of a lot, leaving certain players out. And he's obviously a very, very good manager of his group. He doesn't get so much of a significant drop off with the side. So there's obviously some changes within that group, but a lot of the core group remain the same. Mario Rui, for example, he's pretty much a constant at left back, but he rotated in Di Lorenzo on the other side, and Koulibaly came into the back four as well after being rested. And then Insigne is pretty much an ever present in that side. He's so important to the team. But Caljon came in on the other side of midfield. So on the flip side, Milan only made one change. So obviously they're in good form, but did that make a difference as the game wore on in terms of the tiredness of the players? Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think one of the key factors in this game is, and I'll get Alex's take on this, is Napoli have a thing about how they use their wide players to dictate the situation. So in this game, for example, they spent a lot of time getting their wide players marked by the Milan fullbacks, and purposely marked to create space in behind. So there's a lot of occasions where Insigne, for example, early on gets marked by Conte on the right hand side there, and drags Conte off the line to allow the runners running from deep to get in behind the fullback position. We spoke about this a little bit last week, and Alex, as a centre back, are you happy for your fullback to get dragged out of a line to a pass that might not come, to expose you in a channel where you have to go and defend?
No, I'm not. I like to stay in the center of the park. So, but it depends on, that's just my preference. There's some center backs that are so comfortable in defending in those wide areas that the fullback has left, in the space that he's left. And what happens in that area is you get exposed for pace, and you get exposed for your agility as well. The typical center backs like to stay in the center of the park because that's where it's actually the easiest to read the game, and they're not often the fastest guys on the field. So the short answer, honestly, for me is no.
Yeah, I agree, and I think with Insigne, especially down that left hand side, and Mario Rui's quality, he's able to find Fabian Rui early with passes in behind, and it gives Napoli two different options in that moment, where they can obviously attack quickly behind the line and create opportunities to score, but it also allows them to build into the Milan half and much deeper into the Milan half as they scramble back to defend the goal. And it allows them to pin Milan back as they drop deeper and then create moments of pressure, or sustained moments of pressure with the ball as they all move up the pitch together. And then the real kind of magic, I guess, starts to happen from their perspective. And it's really interesting in this game in the first half. Milan tried really hard to go man for man a lot of the time in midfield, and Napoli's rotations with the three guys in there dragged and pulled and manipulated the shape of Milan all over the place. And I think that's okay if you have the legs to cover the distance, or you have the ability to press high from the front. But obviously, with Ibra being at the top, he's not getting any younger, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He wants to do it, but probably can't. I'm not sure how accurate that statement might be, but Danny, as a lone striker, there's only so much you can do at the top, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to utilize Ibrahimovic is use him as an outlet to release pressure, to allow your wingers to come up, your midfield and defensive lines to come up. But we also see Ibrahimovic kind of drop often, as in that middle of the park role. He's kind of taking up regista duties sometimes. I think he just likes, he needs to get some touches on the ball, I guess, for his confidence. If, when it's, let's say, a couple minutes that you don't touch the ball as a striker, you want to take it and move it from side to side. But Steve, I would like to bring up the controversy about the first goal, because I know that we have some different views in this room.
So okay, so I'll talk about the kind of Napoli shape and how Ibrahimovic was really important to the way Napoli defended. So they made a couple of tactical changes in the way they defended as a group in this game. So they actually dropped, with the threat of the two Milan fullbacks, they actually dropped their two wide players to deal directly with those players. So Insigne on one side and Caljon on the other side, they dealt directly with their opposite number in the fullback, which created basically a 4-5-1. But what Gattuso did very well was he allowed the ball side advanced midfielder to get out and press alongside Mertens to create like a 4-4-2 scenario. So if the ball was transferred from one side to the other, that midfield player would drop back into the line and allow the other side out to press. So it was really actually quite a nice way of getting pressure on the ball. And again, the Napoli thing is, when the ball goes backwards and it's a negative, then they can press. But that has a knock-on effect, because you do that kind of thing to block passing lanes into the feet of Ibrahimovic to protect central areas. But then you rely heavily on your wide players to track and defend and follow defenders or attackers all the way into where they need to. So the first goal is a ball that's played down the channel, which Insigne doesn't block. So the ball goes into the channel for Rebic to run into. And there's a moment as he cuts back onto his left foot to deliver the stand-up ball to the back post, where you can see on the replay, there's a moment where Caljon thinks, oh dear, I'm in the wrong space here, and I have to be marking. And there's this crazy moment where he knows it, and so does Hernandez as he checked his shoulder where there's no one coming, and the ball is perfect for him to finish. But because of the nature of the way they wanted to defend, Ibrahimovic moved himself onto the fullback on either side of the pitch. So in that moment, he's actually being marked by Di Lorenzo, which frees up Hernandez as he runs over the back. So it's very clever play from Milan. Whether it was off the cuff or not, there's something definitely in the Ibrahimovic picking on the smaller fullbacks to try and build that physical presence in that moment. But yeah, whether Caljon and Insigne are meant to drop all the way back in to deal with those runners all the way into the box is up for debate. But it's a well-worked go, but also terribly defended.
Yeah, exactly. And you said it right. It was a smart play by AC Milan, because you mentioned Insigne and Callejon not doing their defensive duties, and they're two attacking-minded players. So when that happens, when attackers don't do their defensive duties, that means that you have basically, as an opponent, you have created a play that was very effective, because I guess all the defenders and midfielders took up their job, and it's not always a good thing when you have the attackers, you have to rely on the attackers to track back all the way to the box, because you can really bet that sometimes they're not going to do their job defensively just because of the nature of these players. And Callejon as a right winger, I can see him just complaining about, oh wow, I have to track back all the way down there. Credit to Theo Hernandez, a guy that loves to go forward. He has so much explosiveness and power to do that. So yeah, good play by AC Milan. Chris, anything to add about the position of Ospina on the goal?
Well, I thought Ospina was well positioned on the left side in the beginning, but when the crossover happened, he really cut back past his own goal line, and I really feel like he's clearly a veteran goalkeeper. He probably doesn't fear the ball, but in those situations, you kind of have to hold out at the 2-yard or 3-yard line and move straight across, laterally across, and try to get as big as possible, because you're not going to have any reaction time. So you just want to stay as big as you can. But he doesn't end up interacting with the ball until past the goal line. And I'm uncomfortable seeing keepers past their own goal line. That to me is just, it doesn't compute, to be honest with you. So he's got to go big and got to crush it. And, you know, he might take a ball in the mouth, but that's what you get paid the big bucks for.
And if you guys are about to discuss now the equalizer by Di Lorenzo, I'm going to leave for a few minutes because I already know what Chris is going to say about my man Gianluigi Donnarumma. So please go ahead.
I think the Milan goal was against the run of play, but I also think Napoli struggling to kind of get through for all their good work and their possession stats. I thought they were struggling to get through. So something like this is a free hit for them. It's a gift of a goal. I think we talked earlier offline about the height of the line that Donnarumma sets from a defending point of view, and he gives himself too many bodies to have to come through to win the ball. And the more numbers there are in there, the more variables there are. And fortunately, in this instance, the variables fall in Napoli's favour. And I'll hand the goalkeeper stuff over to Chris.
Well, I just think the key takeaway is setting your line at the 6. I know that's visually easy to understand, but I just think that it's going to most likely be a flick in that situation, and the keeper is just not going to have much time to react. And to Donnarumma's credit, he did an amazingly acrobatic save. You know, he knocked the ball down just in the instep of someone to step in and finish. And you know, I think there's a case to be made. Can we argue that we certainly would? My preference would be to move it to the 9, because as a keeper, I want to be able to protect that I don't get chipped over, but I want to be able to start on the 3, get some momentum, and be able to punch out on the 6. If you push it even higher to say the 12 or 15, that allows for something funny to happen where it's a potential second ball situation. And I'd rather have a clean shot at the 9 where I could go out and punch it clean. But I think it's unforgivable that a 6'5" keeper doesn't go out and punch a ball at the 5-yard line. I don't care if you have to take out 2 of your own defenders to get to that. That's what you get paid the big bucks to, is to protect your house inside the 6.
Oh, and those are big bucks, trust me. The one that Donnarumma gets. But you know what? I'll move the line. If it was me in goal, I'd move the line even further on top of the box, because now you have a reference line that you can all align yourselves to. Alex, as a defender, what would you do on that occasion?
There's deep lines, and then there's this. You know, I'm not a big fan of the deep line, but I'm also not a big fan of the high line. I'm somewhere in between. So I actually agree with you. You say, you know, right on top of the box. I think that's a good spot to start, just to keep the forwards honest. Naturally, you will have players that break the line and that, you know, go off early. It just happens all the time. But like Chris said, when you have a keeper like Donnarumma, he's going to come out and punch. He should come out and grab everything that goes into that space. He should absolutely dominate that space. You know, that should give you as a defender a lot of confidence to say, like, okay, yeah, if my man runs offside and behind, you know, it doesn't matter anyway. Donnarumma is going to catch that ball. And you have to look where the ball is being served from. It's actually not that – it's pretty far. It's not that close to the goal. And it's more in a central wide position. It's not, you know, very, very wide. So for me, as a defender, I would choose to have the line much higher here. Like Steve said, it's a free gift. And, you know, all that cluster just causes confusion. And as a defender, you don't have time to actually run and then jump. You just almost have to jump straight up and hope that you're tall. And the tallest guy usually gets there. So
I will say that in the Milan-Juve game earlier in the week, Donnarumma had a beautiful, beautiful punch in traffic towards the end of the game, which could have ended up preventing a goal. And I was ready to fall in love in the Milan-Juve game, but you know, after seeing this result here in the Napoli game, not to mention that second goal, right? I mean, I really feel like. Beautiful play. and Mertens, he was able to make it a little bit tricky, and there was possibly a deflection, but I am not a big fan of the spread-legged set position, particularly when it relates to low-angle shots, because you end up getting megged if someone hits the ball right at you, right? And that's kind of what happened. And when you're in a spread-legged position, you have a tendency to have your weight on your heels, which means you can more or less only go one direction, which is backwards. And you just don't want to be in that position as a keeper, is falling backwards, the ball going through your legs.
Yeah, I think the Milan, the man backline get lucky here because everyone forgets how terrible their defending was for this goal, because he should take the shot. I think Mertens' run is a decent run, but nothing out of the ordinary that you wouldn't see at this level of football. But there's 5 defenders in the box and only him. So how he ends up on the end of this cutback from Caljon is extraordinary. And yeah, maybe it takes a bit of deflection, but he has to save it. There's no doubt he has to save the shot. And I think if I'm in the back line, I'll probably patting him on the back saying thank you, because it's taken away from the poor marking and poor defending that they produced at this moment.
Yeah, I think the defenders were just caught looking exclusively at the ball instead of both the ball and the attackers making the runs in the box.
Can I ask Alex, when you're making your runs back and you've got the ball that's out wide or in the half space, how intentional are you about shoulder checking to see where the opposing players are, and how intentional are your teammates in those situations?
Well, it depends. If you're on the line, you can't, it's a debate. Are you going to man mark, or are you going to go zone, or are you going to do a hybrid? So if you man mark, the line can be just so chaotic because you have to stick with the guy. There's so many people moving at the same time. Then you have picks all the time. A lot of teams actually, in this case, do a zone, and whoever runs into that space, you go.
But how about in terms of crosses, like not a corner, but a winger bringing it down, taking the cross? Maybe it's the 3 of you versus two strikers. I'm just struck by how much I see the pros. They're basically, they get sucked into watching the ball, and they're not doing the quick checks, much in the same way that Donnarumma and that Mertens goal probably should have done a quick shoulder check to see where the opposing players were before that cross happened.
Yeah, so a step-by-step would be, okay, I see that the cross has been, or the winger has controlled the ball. I see his intent to cross. I see he's looked up. He's looked at where he wants to cross. A lot of the guys are pretty deceptive. They can cut it back even if they look a certain way.
Yeah.
At that moment where in my opinion, it's a split second too. It's very fast. In my opinion, where I know he's going to cross, then I shoulder check, then I get close, or I go into a path. It's very quick. I go into a path where I think they're going to run into, and then I win that ball in that exact path where I think he's going, not where he is. I win where he's going. I have to win the space to where I think he's going. It's about anticipation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Daniele, as a striker, how do you take advantage of those guys ball watching?
I mean, if they're ball watching, then it's just better for me. They have no idea where I am. It gets tough when they manage to do both. So they put an arm on you as well as looking at when and where the ball is delivered from. Mm-hmm. And then you, as a striker, you do double movements, right? You go first, you pretend you attack the far post, and then you attack in front of them, or the opposite. Bottom line, you want to get rid of your marker so that you can tap the ball in. Steve, anything else to add about this game?
Yeah, I think Pioli quite cleverly in the second half, he realised that they were getting the run around a little bit and made a tactical change. He went more to a 4-1-3-2, man up alongside Ibrahimovic to help him with the pressure, and went a little bit more for the ball as opposed to dropping into a zone and hoping for the best a little bit. So they got a little bit higher at the pitch in the second half. Their passes per defensive action was actually lower than Napoli's, much lower in the second half, in fact. And there comes a point where you can manage the game if you have the ball, and you can sometimes manage the ball without the ball by pressing or by dropping into a block and containing. And I think they did a good job in the second half of doing both. The penalty to get them back in is potentially a little bit lucky, like we've spoken about penalties over the last half an hour or so. But I think the result was maybe a fair one. Napoli, even though they dominated certain aspects of the game with the ball, they didn't create enough to win the game, I don't think. And I think the result's a fair one. I think the result's a fair one.
Just a curious fact to end our discussion about Napoli-Milan. So Milan manager Stefano Pioli would have to win all the remaining 6 games to equalize the number of points that Gattuso put together last year when he was in charge of AC Milan. Which I don't necessarily agree with letting him go, but that's a topic for another discussion. What happened also this past weekend, or better week, we had some movements in the lower half of the table. I think we can write off Spal and Brescia. They're probably going to play Serie B football next year. But Lecce collected 4 points. Genoa collected 3. And right now, Lecce is occupying the highest spot in the relegation zone. And just 1 point ahead of them is Genoa. And 5 points ahead of them is Torino with 1 game in hand. Evergreen striker Goran Pandev scored for Genoa. Another evergreen striker, Fabio Quagliarella, scored, came back to scoring, 38 years of age. I was definitely happy to see him putting his name on the score sheet again. By the way, Steve, what do you make of that 3-win away of Sampdoria at Udinese, also knowing that your man, Camille Lasagna, scored again?
He scored 5 in a row now. 5 games
Wow.
running he scored.
That's national team material, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's any coincidence that their kind of turnaround has been off the back of him scoring a few goals. As I said way back before the resumption that they're going to have to find a way to get him the ball more, and I think they've done that. But this game had 4 amazing goals in it. I think his first one is a stunning strike. The goals he scores equals points. And then the 3 Samp goals are excellent as well. 2 volleys and a great hit from outside the box. And yeah, it was a real relegation battle. No one really wanted to give the game away and make mistakes. And I think it's a typical Ranieri masterclass where they just sat a little bit deeper, waited for moments where they could counter. They actually got done on the counter, which was a surprise, but it was from a set piece. And yeah, I think it was a typical Ranieri performance from his team, and has equaled or brought them back level again with Udinese, who had got a bit of a jump on them. But I think they're fairly safe now, these 2, in terms of their status for Serie A next year. But a real entertaining one for a lower level game for sure.
Yeah, I would say maybe they need another 5 points maybe in the next six games just to make sure, just because we know that safety zone is usually set at 40 points, and right now they both sit at 35. You mentioned 4 great goals, and what's more, 4 goals from 4 different Italian strikers: Lasagna, Bonazzoli, Gabbiadini, and Quagliarella. So looking forward to what Mancini is going to decide for the next call up for the national team. Why don't we move on to some previews? We're going to have another 2 rounds of Serie A games coming at us. As usual, the format is between Tuesday and Thursday is match day 33. And then on the weekend, we're going to have match day 34. We have Sassuolo hosting Juventus on Wednesday, as well as Udinese against Lazio. We have a big relegation battle matches. We have Torino against Genoa and Lecce against Fiorentina. And then on Sunday, I would highlight Genoa-Lecce. Big game. Excited to watch that. As well as Roma against Inter and Juve-Lazio, which may have lost a little bit of the appeal, given that Lazio really seems to have run out of gas. Steve, is there any games that you would like to particularly highlight?
Torino Genoa's an interesting one. 16 plays 17th. if Torino win, they're probably safe along with Samp and Udinese. Genoa are hanging on after last week. Pandev's obviously keeping them in it a little bit, but if they get beat here, the gap will be 7 points with 5 to play, and Torino have a game in hand. So it's got a lot of bearing on this one. The gap could become 1, even with that game in hand. So that's a really interesting one for me. Torino have done well since the resumption, considering they lost, I think, 8 in a row before that. They've done pretty well to pick up points in the last few games, but yeah, that's one I'll be keeping my eye on. I know Alex loves a relegation battle. They're entertaining to watch, as everyone fights to stay up for sure.
Yeah, on Sunday, Genoa and Lecce, I think it's a must watch. The amount of intensity, the tension that you can feel from just watching these two teams trying to collect points. And honestly, the approach will depend on the midweek games go, because if Genoa is still ahead, probably they're going to settle for a draw, versus if they end up being behind, they're going to want the whole 3 points. Chris, I know that you're excited to see Juve Lazio. What are you looking forward the most?
Well, I in the last week or two, I was extraordinarily excited to watch this game. Yes. But Lazio, as you've said, I think that's a kind way run out of gas. I think they've completely fallen on their face with 3 consecutive losses. So I am hoping they find their mojo, right, and give Juventus, who at this point are almost on cruise control as far as I can tell. No injuries. Get maybe do some squad rotation if necessary, but let's go hard the first 60 minutes and see what we can do. So I don't see the matchups. I'm going to be curious to see if Juve continues to do their what I call an old school British style, hit the long ball straight and let one of the fastest, fittest strikers that can push people off the ball off, and see if that tactic, that 1980s tactic, becomes new 2020 tactic again, because of Italy's advanced tactical thinking that it's so old it's got to be new.
And obviously, you're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo when you say the fittest and the strongest striker on top. I know that you, Steve, you have an interesting take on how would Juventus look without Cristiano Ronaldo. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I just one of my weekly takeaways. I made kind of 3 or 4 overview notes from the last week of games, and one of my weekly takeaways is that Juventus without Ronaldo could be more Napoli than Juventus. You made the comment earlier about the 11 penalties, for example, and his goals and output. As one of them games basically when they haven't played very well, or they picked up points when they haven't played very well. If you remember a little while ago, I spoke about the XG or the X point, and where they would be if they picked up the points they were meant to pick up, and they were down in 5th or 6th place. And you can make a big case for the fact that those points being picked up are Ronaldo's output goal-wise. So, yeah, I think he showed more intent to running behind, like Chris said, than he has done over the recent past in the last few games, and being picked out on a diagonal from Sandro, for example, in 2 big chances, or 1 goal and 1 big chance in the last 2 games. So yeah, maybe that's a thing where they don't actually have a lot of pace at the top if they play Higuain and Dybala, who are, Higuain's a fixed focal point. Dybala's very, very wanting to come off the front and dribble and drive with the ball at his feet, whereas they don't have a lot of runners in behind. So maybe he's had to take on a little bit more responsibility on that front to give them a bit more flexibility in their attacking threat. But yeah, that's one of my big weekly takeaways, is that maybe they're a bit more Napoli than Juventus without him in the side.
I'd like to see them win without PKs and maybe help from the refs. So we'll see.
I'll tell you something, Chris. Like even Lazio, even Immobile, he's got 11 goals from PKs out of 12 attempts. So really, the spike in PKs is making a difference. I think this year there have been 159 PKs out of 319 games, which is 50%. And last year, the number of total PKs were 122. So we are way ahead of last year, and we have 6 games to play. So
I think what they need is they need better defenders. Alex, you ready to pack your bags and go spend a little bit of time in the Mediterranean?
Now with these harsh rules with VAR and handballs.
Yeah.
Of course I would.
Chris, I know that you have some strength of schedule insight to share with us. Tell us who's gonna have
I just wanted to share. I thought we'd just have a quick look-see because we've still got a few games or so, about six or seven matches, depending on who you are, and trying to suss out who has the easiest run-in and really who has the most challenging run-ins. At this point, I think Juventus is, once they get past Lazio, I think they're kind of trotting along, finishing up. I do think that only 3 points separate Lazio, Atalanta, and Inter. Inter does have a game in hand. So that could be interesting for fighting for second place, right? So that's one thing. And then you really need to go down to the next tier, the Roma, Napoli, and AC Milan, which there's only 4 points separating those. So it's not a Europa or no Europa. It's, do I have to go through qualifying rounds in which to do that? So I guess I'm interested in seeing if Atalanta can maybe move up and how Inter can do with Lazio sliding a bit. From a schedule perspective, what are y'all's takes in terms of who's got the more difficult run in?
Well, I'll begin. I'll tell you that I have a theory that Lazio will get beat by Udinese this week. I think they're in a real struggle now, and I think there's a lot to be said for the rotation of squad and starting 11, and I think they haven't done it very well so far. So I think they get beat by Udinese, they get beat by Juventus, and by that stage, you'll find that Atalanta and Inter may have gone past them. I think Inter still have a game in hand, don't they, over the top guys. So yeah. And then after that, anybody that you're playing who are not fighting for their lives is a game that you can win if you show enough energy and determination too. So teams like Verona and Brescia and Parma and those teams in there who don't really have a lot to play for, I think those are the games that you target and to pick up points in for sure if you need those points.
You know what? I agree with you in that Udinese will beat Lazio because Udinese is probably the most physical team in the league, and it's the best time to play Lazio because right now Lazio looks really out of energy, out of juice. So I agree with that. I do think that Atalanta Inter will overcome Lazio in the table. I'm looking at the Roma and the AC Milan schedule. Obviously, it will depend on this bottom of the table teams will do, but the schedule of AC Milan looks pretty good in terms of Parma, Bologna, Sassuolo are teams that really made of the table. They don't have much to ask for. And then you have Cagliari, same position. And Sampdoria, by the time they play them, which is the second to last game, they may be safe. So really, Milan have to play Atalanta, but that's it in terms of very hard game. Same for Roma. They have Inter, but then you have Spal, who's already probably not already, but is
they'll be gone by then. They'll be down
by then. And then you have Fiorentina and Torino, who could save themselves before those last 3 games, and then as well as Juventus, who they're gonna play at the end, very last game of the season, which Juventus could have already clinched the title by then. I don't know, Alex, you have do you see anything specific about these schedules?
We talk about Lazio now. All of a sudden, obviously, they're in a terrible run of form, but I think they're actually one of the worst teams to play right now because of the recent results. I think they're going to flip it around, and with the recent run of results, they have to respond. Like, I would not want to play Lazio right now, so I'm going to take the alternative opinion and say that. So I think they're going to come back. I still think Atalanta is going to jump over them. I don't think Lazio is going to play well through the next few games and finish in the second spot. I think Roma's pretty vulnerable, in my opinion. I can see them dropping points I think Napoli will jump over them. Obviously, the last couple of games will be difficult for Napoli, but I can see them still doing well. And I don't know, Milan's in a great run of form.
Mm-hmm.
Daniela, you probably love that, but I can just see them, pushing Roma, maybe even pushing Napoli and getting in there. I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
Napoli are not that bothered though, because they're already qualified because of the Coppa Italia.
Right.
So
True.
where they finish is kind of irrelevant. They if they were really good people, they would finish in the bottom of those three spots, so that they would lose the qualification aspect of it and let everyone else through. But that's not going to happen. But they're the ones who are the safest, and I think that shows in Gattuso's rotation and also his flexibility and adding things to his side that he perhaps hasn't done so much before. So, yeah, Milan have got a fight on their hands, but I think they'll be okay.
Alex, I'll say something about Roma. They have there is a kid who just came back, Nicolò Zaniolo, and he scored a goal this past weekend. He's I don't even know if he's 20 years of age or he's still 19, but very young. Such an explosive attacking player, and he could be the difference maker for Roma. They before this week they really struggled, especially defensively. It was a nightmare looking at what they were doing, but it seems like they have found that chemistry back. So it will be an interesting battle right there for the fifth position. Knowing Gattuso, not personally, but knowing his coaching style, I think that he was gonna demand his players to just keep playing until the last game. Obviously, subconsciously, maybe the players will give up a little bit because, like you said, Steve, they're already gonna play Europa League football next year. But we'll see how they hold up. Who do you guys think are gonna save themselves at the bottom?
I think it's now between Genoa and Lecce.
Okay.
To be fair, I think it's all, like you say, teams need maybe 38 to 40 points, but that's only necessary if the teams below them are picking up points. And although they've done well in the last week or so to pick up a few, I don't think they've got enough consistency in them to overturn that deficit. So, like I said, if Torino beat Genoa this week, I think 7 points with a game in hand, I think it's pretty much between those two after that. Well, if I had to pick, I'd say Lecce are the ones to struggle and go down.
Yeah, as we speak, Torino's beating Inter 1-0 at halftime. So
there you go.
I think absolutely right.
You know what? Yes and no, because we have 6 games to play, which is a lot. You have 18 available points. So a team can go on a run of 3 straight victories, momentum. You play like 3 games in 10 days, no, less, 3 games in a week, basically. So I don't think it's as closed as it may seem if you look at the table, because there's still a lot of games to play.
That is true, and that's a fair point. But at the moment, Genoa and Lecce both average less than a point a game. So you're relying on teams above them not to pick up points like they have done, and you're relying on you to double your points tally over the next few games, which is possible. But I think the odds are stacked against 17 and 18 in the league right now.
Well, we'll see what happens during this week, and I'm sure that by next week we're gonna have a clearer picture of all these battles, for the title, for the relegation, for Europa League spots. That's it for today's show. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Steve, Alex, and Chris. Chris, I hope that you're still gonna be here next week, even if Donnarumma doesn't make any mistakes. We will be back next Tuesday with another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. Ciao.